So greetings, everybody. Thank you for joining us to find out about how your website can help you this year and drive your growth, drive your sales, and a whole bunch of other stuff. I think we're going to have a good time. And so I'd like to introduce myself and Michael. Basically, I am the initiative manager for Target Web, so I oversee the whole project, and then Michael's our specialist. So you know, as we he knows a lot about what we're doing here, and I'm going to put him kind of through the ringer today. So we're going to have some fun. So I'm going to be asking Michael a bunch of questions, get his opinion on the industry and perspective on just everything, mostly because I don't want to have sort of this monologue with my monitor. So we're going to have a little chat today. So it'll be good. So Michael, I do have one question for you before we get off this slide. Which one of us do you think looks goofier in these pictures?
I would say me, because
that is the right answer, my man. Okay, so I do have another question. So this is for everybody to learn, and it's kind of interesting. What % of people learn more about a company online than anywhere else? So what number would you think that is? People doing their research before they go?
I would say 9 out of 10, 90%.
90%. That's a big number. You think it's that high?
I think more and more people these days are really adopting the let me just jump on my phone, browse the website, and make a decision. So yeah. I think at least to some degree they're looking online for some kind of info.
And you are right. It's a whopping 97%. It's mind-blowing to me. It really stresses the importance of having a really strong online presence, and just incredible. I didn't think it was going to be that high, and it's just huge. It just shows that people are doing their research, and you know, talking to our dealers, they know that. They've seen a shift over the past few years of people know what they want kind of when they come into the dealership, and that's true. So 3% are not doing that, Michael. What do you think those 3% are doing?
Probably just going to the same place they've always gone their whole life, and you know, no need to look online if it's just your regular store.
That's something I didn't think of. I was pretty sure that you were going to say you thought everybody was in a coma. But even with that, I looked up the stats with the National Institute of Health, and it's only less than one. I don't even know what that is, but 31 in 1,000 in 10,000 people.
So
yeah, it's pretty incredible how many people are in comas, but that doesn't even translate. But that makes sense. You know, the thing I thought about was you know, maybe the Amish people, because it kind of makes sense that maybe they don't do the online research, but even that doesn't even make a dent in that 3%.
No.
The amount of Amish people we have in the country, so it's kind of amazing. So I did a little research, and this was one of the top 50 websites voted by Time Magazine back in 2005, which was only 20 years ago, right? So it's pretty amazing. This was the place to go and shop back in 2005. And how old were you in 2005, Michael? What were you, 7?
Almost. I was 14, freshman in high school.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. So this website looks crazy, doesn't it?
Yeah. It looks like a really old, like what eBay used to look like.
Yeah, it's nutty. So that's yeah. So it's amazing that how far we've come in just 20 years, and so I got another question for you. Without naming any names, have you run across any of our dealers' websites that look worse than this?
Oh yeah. I mean, without naming names, yes.
I can't believe you'd say that about our dealers.
Well, see, I've seen all kinds of websites at this point. You know, we've seen both ends of the spectrum, from nothing to amazing.
And you're right. You're right. It's pretty incredible. So so here's our agenda for today. We're going to go over our 3 topics: website 101s, the do's and don'ts, aligning your website strategy with your business strategy, and creating a seamless shopping experience. As we go through today, Michael and I have been talking quite a bit over the last probably 8 months now, and we've decided that a lot of our dealers' websites kind of fall into 3 categories. And there's those that are focused on growth. There's those that kind of feel like the website's a necessary evil. They just do it because they feel like they have to. And then there's a whole bunch that have sort of given up. And Michael alluded to that in the last slide, that we've seen some pretty terrible websites out there. But we're going to go ahead and we'll see these emojis pop up throughout the presentation. And when you see that one that's focused on growth, it's sort of a a best practice that we've learned, and tips and tricks and things that you should probably pay attention to. And if you see the giving up one, if you're doing any of those things, you probably want to stop doing those. So basically, we're going to go through the first category here, and I focused a lot, as I went back to review it, it seems like I focused a lot on images. So we're going to talk about images and how important they are, why they're important, and stuff like that. So Michael, what do you think? Images important?
Very. Just a little example, when you showed us that last website, obviously those screenshots were pretty old. You could tell they were very pixelated. And so, yeah, I think having an image, not just for the looks, but, when people search for things, search engine optimization, images are very important for that.
Yep, you're right. You're right. And so, obviously quality of the picture matters. And so if you came across a website that had blurry images of products, what would you think? What would you do?
I would leave and find the competitor.
Okay, that's probably pretty accurate. So, so the point I'm going to make over the next couple slides is not only is quality of images important, but a lot has to do with the message that you want to convey as well. So, Michael, what do you think about this image? What does this image say? What are you reading into this? And Michael hasn't been prompted with any of this, so I am putting him on the spot. But
I promise this is the first time I've seen this. I would say that this is a blue-collar guy, works for a landscape company, and he's got a Hustler mower, and looks like it's probably in need of some service pretty soon.
Well, this is actually Hustler's picture that I kind of grabbed, but you're exactly right. So it's important to see that that is sort of a commercial guy that's working on it, and and to contrast that with another image, it's a similar Hustler, not the exact same model, but if you look at it, it's got a huge difference in sort of what the message is saying. What do you think there?
Well, clearly the one on the right is brand new and has never been used, and the one on the left has been through the ringer. But I would say that the one on the right kind of conveys, like, even though this is a big, maybe expensive machine, it can be used for your yard and just for the everyday person.
Yeah,
so a little more relatable, I think.
Yeah, okay, that's where I was going after. So in my mind, it is sort of the same picture, but it depends on what kind of customer that you have. I think if your main customers would be sort of residential, and we see a house behind the picture on the right-hand side, it would sort of say, so what I'm trying to say is if most of your customers are residential customers and you post a picture on the left up there, it might like kind of convey a message to some people that maybe they don't have what you want. They'll look at the first image with the commercial guy on there, and they'll say, oh, you know what, they cater to that type of clientele. So the other part of that image that strikes me is how dirty that picture is. So to me, that looks like hard working, whereas the image on the right is nice and clean. I know you said it looks like it hasn't been used, but it's sort of got this feeling of, hey, this is simple to use. It doesn't get you dirty. And that's kind of the image that you'd want to portray to the your customers. So it really kind of depends on what your main customer is. And I do believe that there is a world where you can actually have both of those sort of, so that you don't alienate one or the other by having one type of picture. You might be able to have a website that says, hey, here's commercial units and here's residential units, and just have the appropriate picture on them. So make sense?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Anything else to add on that, Michael?
No, I think you hit it on the head.
Okay, we're gonna look at some more images. So this is actually an image directly from one of our dealers' websites that we built. And what do you see here? So there's kind of a difference in the pictures here.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I see is, well, I mean, they're clearly trying to emphasize the first two mowers with the picture that they took themselves, and the rest of the pictures are, catalog pictures.
Right. So it's an interesting exercise, and we often say that this is a best practice for our dealers that are focused on growth, and that is to take a picture of the image of that thing at your dealership. Now, a lot of reasons to not do that, because you probably don't have time to do that and all those other things. But if you do have time to make that happen, it's probably a best practice to show some credibility with the customer that, hey, we have this thing in stock in our dealership. And we'll see some images a little later on, or at least one image of something inside the dealership, which reminds me of my favorite story. And my boss, Tim Berman, tells it. He was a dealer for about 12 years, and he did that. He took pictures of everything in his dealership and had them online. And he said on multiple occasions, people would come in and they go, hey, you know what? I was looking at this picture, but I'm not interested in that item. There's something behind that I'm interested in. And he had lots of sales off of that. So I love that story. And, he tells it. I tell it probably more often than he does, because I think it's a great story. And you see up here in our upper right-hand corner here, we got our guy, our emoji guy. So that's people that are focused on growth. That's probably the best contrast. And so, it's easy to have the stock photos put out there, and, it makes sense. So now, in contrast to this, what do you see here?
Well, I would say that that's probably a Dealer Spike website, number one. But two, yeah, not having an image altogether, I mean, it doesn't lend much credibility, because, maybe the average person's gonna look at, 2023 CC30H, what is that, and so having something up there, I think, is better than nothing.
Right. And you're exactly right on that. This doesn't lend any credibility that, you have this thing, or that you can even get this thing. I suppose it shows that you can get it. But it took me literally 1 second to highlight that model number and search Google, and I went directly to the images and descriptions. And it probably would have taken me just a few minutes to copy and paste that stuff and get it up on my website. But so, Michael, for people that don't have a couple minutes to populate manufacturers' images and descriptions on their website, do you have any tips for that? Do you have any tools, any ideas how they could do that without spending a few minutes?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing that comes to mind is what we provide with Target Web with the master catalog. We've got a catalog we build ourselves internally, keep it updated. It's got all the images, descriptions for all the major OPE brands out there. So these items, when they come over from Ideal, it's just going to match up with those images and description and save you the time of having to manually put those in.
Boy, I didn't expect you to give that much details, but awesome. Yeah. So yeah, you're exactly right. What we do when we build websites, we populate the images and descriptions from manufacturers. But again, it's a lot of times the best practice for you to make those changes. Put up your own pictures if you want to enhance the descriptions. Typically, manufacturers don't give a lot of color into it. They'll talk about specs and features and stuff like that. But you can say, hey, imagine how fast it'll be for you to mow your lawn with this ultra fast Z-turn type of thing and stuff like that. So Michael, you might notice at the top of the screen on both sides, you think this dealer sees his website as a necessary evil, or you think they've given up?
Yeah, this looks like it's kind of just thrown together, very basic, very template looking website. And so yeah, I think he just thinks it's a necessary evil.
Okay.
Because it does look better than those that have given up and those that have admitted to giving up.
I expected you to give a different answer, but I agree with you. At least they have some stuff on there. They have, contact us for pricing and things like that. So, we'll give them the necessary evil look on that one. So,
well, they're probably paying a lot of money for that website too, so they haven't completely given up.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's talk about this. This is also not one of our dealers, just like the last photo. I kind of like what they've done here. We have an indoor image. It has, it appears that they have this particular Skag model right in their dealership, which lends, again, that credibility. They have a stock photo on the bottom left, and it might be hard or difficult for you to read that, but there's a button there that says, click this, and it says product details on it. So what would you expect to happen if I click on that?
I would expect another window or tab, or maybe just to open up and do a whole new listing for that action.
Okay, and you are right with that. So if we do click that, it does open a new tab in your browser. However, it takes them to the Skag website.
Yep, we see that over and over again.
which, okay, I understand the concept because the manufacturer's website will obviously have the details and images and stuff on that mower. But, you know, first off, it's forced them off of your dealer website. You know, now they're somewhere else. Who knows if they're ever coming back to your dealer website, which of course is not great. But look what else is on the dealer, which is on the Skag website. Find a dealer? Who wants that? You know, they were just at a dealer's website. Do you really want them having easy access to find another dealer? I don't think this is a best practice at all. I gave this one a given up emoji, so I think you might agree with that one on.
Yes.
Yeah, all right, makes sense. So you and I are on the same page. I'm shocked. So we're going to switch gears here a little bit and talk about practical SEO tips that dealers can attack right away. I ran a quick search for one of our dealers, and for what I would consider to be a medium-sized dealer, pretty good. 225 Google reviews, 4.6 stars, which is pretty nice. So we're going to talk about why your Google business profile is super important. So Michael, do you ever look at this column on the right-hand side when you're on a search? You ever look at these things?
That's the main thing I look at.
Okay.
I want to see good reviews. I want to see a lot of reviews, and I want to see a link to the website. A lot of times, those listings won't even have the website link.
You're right, and those I just stay away from entirely. It's crazy, but you're exactly right on that one. So how many people do you think look at that right side? I thought it was.
You want a number?
Yeah, give me a number.
Say at least 60%.
You are exactly right on that one, and I did not give Michael this information. So
Nope.
according to what I researched, 60% of people look at that, and so that's hugely important. You know, if you have more than half the people looking at your Google business profile, at least on that page, without even clicking on it, that's huge. I think there's definitely some lessons to be learned there. So I did pull up Eden Lawnmowers listing here, and I'd like to go through it a little bit. We'll dive into it a little bit and see what's on here. You know, obviously photos, which is a good thing. You know, we talked about having good quality photos on there. The map thing shows up for everybody, and it reminds me of another interesting story. My buddy's business, the pin on the map pointed to somewhere else, so people constantly calling him saying, oh, you know what, we followed the GPS directions and everything else, we followed Google and we can't find you. And it was insane. And I was able to actually submit a correction on that so that Google corrected it for him. And now it points directly to his business. And so if that's happening to anybody, they give us resources to make these changes, make these modifications, make these little tweaks so that they are actually correct. Another interesting thing is that if you Google my house, it doesn't take you to my house. It takes you about a quarter mile past my house. I don't know why. And then, so I keep trying to correct that, but they don't get it right. They've never changed that one. So I don't know what's going on over there. But so yeah, so the map is important. You can put other photos in here. Obviously your main information, having these buttons. Again, that website button I think is huge for me when I look at this to see if they actually have a website. You know, some people do have a website, but they've never put it into their Google profile so that it just doesn't show up there. I've run across that quite a bit, which is kind of crazy to me. And then, you know, obviously there's this short description here, and we have the address and all that good stuff, phone number. The hours are hugely important. I hate going to this thing and not seeing any hours on there, and they make it pretty simple for you to update those things. Questions and answers. And then there's this long description. So what they have here is a lot of information. And if you think about keywords and putting information into this, I think they did a really good job here, because they talk about, you know, they first off start with their name and when they were started. They talk about their county. Look what they do throughout the rest of it. They drop names of all the manufacturers all the way through, and a bunch of other keyword stuff. So I think this is pretty good. And then we wind up with the social media buttons at the bottom, which they're obviously very all over social media here, which is kind of interesting. But you know, this thing I think is probably getting combed through a lot by Google to find a lot of what you're searching for.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
A lot of good keywords in there.
Yeah, I thought so too. So, any other comments on that, Michael?
I like it a lot. I mean, that's the exact kind of business that I'd be looking for, and I think it lends them a lot of credibility because clearly they care about their image.
Yep, you're right. So here's 10 steps here that I think you can find a lot of small wins here if you're not doing these things with your Google business profile. Many of them are sort of set it and forget it. Like, first of all, claiming it, claim your listing, and put the information in there as far as your website and stuff like that. But there's a few that have a few small things that might take an ongoing effort. It says to keep your information up to date. So if you're going to be closed for Martin Luther King Day by chance, you probably want to put that in there way ahead of time, different things. One of the things that they say is to post regularly. So I guess you can put information in there, manage and respond to reviews, even and not to fight with people that complain about you, but just responding to reviews that you get. Again, Google loves that. It's going to put you up in the rankings as far as things like that go. And then what was the other thing I wanted to talk about? Oh, use Google Q&A. And that basically, people put in questions and you can put in answers, but one of the things I learned is that you can actually seed that with your own questions. So if there's something that people ask a lot about your business, you can kind of take a proactive approach and put the question in there and put the answer in there for them. So it makes it kind of nice. So again, little efforts, I think it'll go a long way. And guess what, Michael? We have a free resource available for today's attendees that breaks down each of those steps more in depth. So if you hang out to the end of the webinar, we'll make sure that you get a link to that and you can get those. So it's pretty cool. So, all right. So again, doing these things, looking like we're focused on growth, right?
Absolutely.
Another best practice is to ensure that your website is mobile friendly. And with so many users visiting the website from your mobile device, it's incredibly important to have a website that's mobile friendly. You know what mobile friendly means, Michael?
That means that on your phone, it's going to look at least similar and have the same functionality as on a computer.
Yeah, back in the day, I don't know if you remember, you go to somebody's mobile site, it was all wonky and weird and stuff like that. Much better now to do that. And then, so my suggestion, it kind of blew me away a bunch of years ago when I looked to check the analytics on how many people, and it shows you what platforms they're coming from, and the amount of people that are using mobile is just incredible. I never thought that it would be as high as it is, but it's just crazy. And so if you have the opportunity to look at your analytics and see, you might be shocked by that. And my other comment is if your site's only a few years old, it's probably already likely optimized for mobile. But if it's a bit older than that, you might want to check on it. And it's pretty simple. Just go on, on your phone, pull up your website, which I think a lot of people don't do often. And then, you'll be able to see if it makes sense and make sure things are lined up correctly and stuff like that. So we're going to move on to our second topic, which is aligning website strategy with business strategy. And so my question here, and not to you, Michael, but in general, is what's your website goal? And I think it's easy for us to say, well, the goal of the website is to make money. And while that is accurate, the type of strategy used can be very different. And Michael and I are going to break down each one of these for our audience here. Basically, we have e-commerce, we have lead generation, and we have BOPIS. And we'll talk about each of those a little bit more in depth. So if we go on to the e-commerce part, basically it's the buying and selling of goods and services using the internet, which is pretty simple to understand. And then, you can read through that. Transactions occur electronically. Basically everything's electronic, and you ship it out if someone purchases something. And we can think about, Amazon and Walmart and a gazillion other companies that fall into this category. And Michael, how many is a gazillion? Do you know?
Just a little more than 1 billion.
You're right. You're exactly right. So, but we see here that the characteristics of e-commerce. So I think everybody understands the concept behind that. And I think a lot of people want to do that, but just don't know how. So second one we're going to go through, I can't believe it's been 26 minutes already, but second one we're going to go through is lead generation. And, earlier we talked about not forcing people off of your website. And, the search can get a certain number of people to your website, but I think with a little bit of effort, Lead generation brings it a little further so that you can bring people to your website, give them a reason to come to your website. And website traffic is always good, and but you can get them there by offering them something, whether it's a discount or a resource or a coupon. It could be an educational piece. I think that one of the most popular strategies we see nowadays with dealers is they'll put up a tutorial about how to change the oil in this particular mower or how to do something, you know, and people go there and they view the videos, and that's sort of a way for you to get them on your website, and hopefully they'll see something and maybe make a purchase or try to create a relationship with them and things like that. You know, if they're visiting your website, it's highly likely that you're in their target market. Maybe they're a little bit outside of your geographical range, but they like your, you know, like what you have to offer. Maybe they'll buy something and have you ship it to them. I don't know. So money spent on converting customers that are in your target is much better than putting money into advertising that you don't know, like a billboard on the side of the road. You know, at least you know these people want to see what you have. So Michael, what do you think is better? Customers buy e-commerce and that you never have to interact with them, or customers that you're able to build relationships with?
I think you need a healthy mix of both. I think in order to grow and really scale to the level that, you know, you maybe want to get to, you're going to have to do both. It's 2025 already, which is kind of crazy how quick the century is going. But you know, people are just more geared to online now. So I think at this point, you do have to mix it up, and you do have to introduce some new concepts. But you know, you always want to stay to your roots and make sure you're building those relationships and building those connections with people.
I was really sure you were going to pick one, so I was going to go and say what you just said, but thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
But you're right. You know, I think that mix of having that, it makes sense. And which leads us to BOPIS. And BOPIS loosely brings e-commerce and lead gen together. I don't think it really does, but this is the way I look at it. You know, if you think about it, customers search your website. Maybe you got them there due to lead gen action. You know, maybe you promised them something, a discount or a good price or something like that. You know, they make a purchase online, which is cha-ching. That's exactly what we want. And then you get the thing off the shelf as the dealer, and the customer picks it up at the store. You know, it's easier. It's probably easier to be on the fulfillment side of that as opposed to shipping with e-commerce. But they both have their, you know, both have their sweet spots. And you know, and you get an opportunity to create a relationship with a customer. And I have to say this: if you're not taking advantage of that, you know, if someone buys something online that's never been a customer of yours before, that you don't have a relationship with, and you're not taking 1 minute to talk to that person when they come in your store to pick that thing up, I think you're missing an opportunity. I think there's a lot of things you can do, and even if it's just to tell them, hey, you know what, when you know, we have the other accessories that go along with this thing, or we have, you know, things we can repair it for you if it ever breaks, and just having that, as opposed to saying, you know, basically like going through the drive-through window, ordering a burger and then handing it to the customer. You know, you have an opportunity, and I strongly urge you to train your people to take 1 minute, engage with the person that just gave you money, and you know, explain something, you know, about how the product works, or just engage them. Take 1 minute of their time, and hopefully you'll be able to build a relationship pretty solidly that way. And then so we're going through the creating a seamless shopping experience real quickly here. So as far as the strategies go that we just talked about, it's likely that you can use all three of them on your website. It all depends on what fits your dealership, and even down to the product level. You know, if you want to sell just parts, which a lot of our dealers do, it makes sense, you can do that. We have dealers that don't want to sell any parts. So, you know, they have to do sort of buy in store and pick up online. I'm sorry, buy online and pick up in store, and that type of thing. So, you know, people tell me that nobody will ever buy a whole good online, and I disagree with that. You know, I think that 10, 15, 20 years ago, nobody thought that they'd be able to buy a car online, and it's happening every day. And so when I look at what Target Web can be, I look to the automotive industry, because I think that 8, 10, 12 years from now, we'll be able to sell things online. We'll be able to have those whole goods. I think it's just a matter of whoever's going to take the bull by the horns and figure out the shipping on it. You know, it's pretty much a no-brainer. I think that's where we're going, and that's my 2 cents on that one. But so with the with the creating a seamless shopping experience. It's interesting. I'd say that most websites have been designed to make it easy for the dealers to sell, right? You agree with that, Michael?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So my question here is that, have we made the website easy for the customer to buy? I think that's next level. I think that's where we need to go. I think that's where most people are seeing the discrepancy. Michael and I were on a call with what I'd consider to be an industry expert on Friday, wouldn't you say, Michael?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And he said, he may even be on this call, but he said that 80% of his sales are commercial customers, which means that they finance the thing. And so what that really means to him is, how can we display what they're looking for in terms that they really understand? And he's talking about monthly payments, instead of showing the whole payment, which you probably want to do that anyway, the total cost of the thing, allow people to shop with, hey, I can afford X number of dollars per month. What do you have in stock that fits that bill? And, we can do that. It's just a matter of building the right collection, putting the right information in it, and making that happen. So really, if you look at all of these, things that are listed on here, it's making it easy for the customer to buy, and I think if you really boil it down, it's putting as much information on the website so that the customer doesn't have to have a question unanswered, which is kind of difficult here because you don't want the website to be overloaded and cluttered looking. So speaking of overloaded and cluttered looking, I found these two websites today. These were voted the top bad websites of 2024. Okay, so it's a little crazy. The one on the left just got a ton of stuff all over the board of what they're selling and stuff like that. So probably not a great shopping experience for the customer. The one on the right is just insane. And so, yeah, these sites actually make Shopzilla look good, don't they, Michael?
They do. Yeah. The one on the left reminds me of those old newspapers where you have all the listings on the back,
I think that may have been what they were going for. So you're right. And so I visited both of these websites, and I have to talk about Lings a little bit more because Lings is insane. Lings has so much going on here. They have animations. They have a giant white space at the bottom of the page, which is just wasted. If you go to the top, they have all this flashing stuff and everything. So it's nutty. But, I think I also look at Lings. They have the S in Lings lowercase, so it doesn't say Ling scars, I suppose. But anyway, but to their credit, they actually do claim that they are the craziest car leasing website in the UK. So here we are talking about it, so they're getting attention, and maybe there's no bad attention, I don't know. But who am I to judge? And maybe the OPE industry needs somebody to step outside the box and make a splash like this. I don't know. If someone wants to make a site like this, we'll build it for you. Maybe a toned down version of this makes more sense, but hey, they're thinking outside the box, and I love that. So, we're going to recap here. Here's our list of do's and don'ts. We learned that 97% of customers research online. So obviously you want to make sure that your information is there online and accurate. What do your images say? Can you post images from your dealership to lend that credibility? Work on your Google profile, business profile. Is your website mobile friendly? Can you make it easy to buy? And then I listed the 3 strategies. Which one of those do you really want to concentrate on? Which one of those makes the most sense for your dealership? Can you incorporate all 3 of them to make it, again, an easy buying experience? Some of the don'ts. I recommend not having a no photo available situation. Don't take customers away from your website. That to me is craziness. And then, don't clutter your website. So it's a nice fine balance. And so little plug here for what we actually do. Michael and I represent Target Web, and we basically put the power of your DMS, your dealer management system, into your website. We create an integration that allows the information, the actual information about pricing and inventory and sales to go to your website, and then sales to return back to your website. So it's a little gratuitous plug here, but I've also included this as a best practice one. So So, Michael, you got anything else to add at this moment?
No, I mean, I think you covered everything.
All right. So, Caitlin, do we have any questions? I'm also open to comments, praises, jokes, and riddles. So I'm open to anything. So bring it on.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Michael. Just a reminder, if you guys do have questions, you can pop them into the question window or the chat box, and we'll read them out now to get them answered. Couple of questions here, Kevin. First one, what about drop shipping?
Yeah, so drop shipping, I didn't get into a whole lot, but it's basically an e-commerce play. And if you don't know what drop shipping is, someone will go to your website and order something, and even if you might not even have it in stock, but if you have a relationship with the manufacturer, they may just ship that thing directly from the distribution center for you directly to the customer. You've probably had things drop shipped to you. Lots of times I don't think you realize that they are drop shipped, but I think in that scenario you want to talk to a manufacturer, find out if they have options for that. And I think it's a brilliant play. I think if you could sell something on your website that you really haven't paid for yet and that you don't have to actually handle, that's a win-win. Michael, thoughts on drop shipping?
No, yeah. I mean, drop shipping is the shortcut to sales if you can do it right.
Oh, a hack. Nice. All right. Got any other questions?
Perfect. Yes, we did have another question come in here. Is there an e-commerce portion to the site to add items other than whole goods?
Yeah, so if you're talking about the websites that we build, yes. So we have parts, we have dealers that sell apparel, we have dealers that sell basically everything under the sun. If we're building the website, we do provide the information, so the images and descriptions for whole goods, OPE whole goods. So those dealers that need to sell all those other things that aren't considered an OP whole good, basically just have to find the images and descriptions, and it's pretty simple to add those to the listing, but it still hooks into the dealer management system so that it's still seamless. So if they're selling a whole good or if they're selling a jacket or a hat or whatever, it's still the same process.
Perfect. And keeping with the theme here of e-commerce, can you have an e-commerce only site?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, actually, we're building 2 just e-commerce sites. It's interesting. We have a dealer, they have a store, and they want to have 2 very specific only online stores. So in that case, it would be specifically just an e-commerce play for them. They'll be able to, whatever the process is in getting those things shipped or put out. Yeah, so we're actually doing that. We built one already. We're building the second one. So yeah, makes sense. And it opens up a lot of opportunities for dealers. If you have your brick and mortar store and want to sort of gravitate towards being, lack of a better term, an Amazon or something, I would say pick a specific niche, specific product, a specific manufacturer, build a website. You have to promote that thing so that people know it exists. But yeah, I think it's a good play.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Michael. I think that's all the questions that I'm seeing here right now, so we can wrap it up. I just want to quickly say thank you to both of you for walking us through the tips and tricks, and then thank you as well for everybody who participated. As a reminder, Kevin shared some free resources with you all as well, and I've added that link there into the chat box. So if you want to click on it and download your resources, then we can do that through that link. As a reminder as well, there will be a survey that pops up at the end of the session where you can leave any feedback or indicate if you're interested in talking further about Target Web with one of our experts. So please leave any feedback in that survey and we'll make sure we get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and I'll pass it back over to Kevin and Michael for any final thoughts.
Yeah, so I'd just like to say thank you for joining us. Hopefully, on behalf of Michael and the team, I hope you learned a little something that you can use to help grow your dealership. If you want to talk more about it, I'd be happy to talk about it, obviously. And then, we hope that we provided a little bit of a chuckle along the way. Michael, you did a great job in answering the questions that you were completely unprompted to. I promise you, he did not know any of those were coming. And but just the fact that you're attending this webinar shows that you are focused on growth, and you can get those excuse me. Caitlin dropped in the link, the free resources, the link to that, and just let us know how we can help. appreciate your time. Michael,
Thanks,
anything?
The only thing I'll say is something I tell all my dealers, the main reason we're here doing what we're doing, we know how busy you are, especially in the busy season. We want to give you as much automation and as many tools to make your life easier as possible. And I think that's what we're doing with this product. And that's the view that we have going forward, is to make your lives easier and have you grow at the same time. So I wanted to say thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Caitlin. And thank you for everybody for being here.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon, hopefully.